Welcome to VSOW. Today we're taking a deep dive into your notes about a truly groundbreaking band, Living Colour. We'll be looking at how they formed, their impact, the rules they kind of broke, all based closely on the details you've gathered for us.
Absolutely. And the mission here is really to unpack Living Color's story using your notes as our guide. We want to highlight how they, maybe surprisingly for some, defied expectations, not just musically, but racially too.
Okay, let's jump right in. The beginning. Vernon Reid. Your notes say he founded the band back in '83 after leaving Ronald Shannon Jackson's Decoding Society.
That's right. And Reed, he had this real vision. He wasn't just looking to start another band. He wanted to, and I think your notes quote him here, marry his various divergent influences.
Like punk, avant-garde, pop.
Exactly. Pulling together all those various weird spaces in his head, as he put it. It wasn't just about genre mashing. It felt more personal, more, unique than that.
And his own background fit into this eclectic approach, didn't it? Your notes mentioned his upbringing.
Oh, massively. Born in the UK, West Indian parents, but grew up in Brooklyn. So he was hearing way more than just what the industry might have labeled black music back then. British invasion stuff, Santana, Hendrix, obviously. But also, really out there jazz, Ornette Coleman, Sun Ra, plus James Brown, Kool and the Gang. All of it went into the mix.
So wasn't an overnight thing? They paid their dues playing gigs in New York.
Definitely. Lots of gigging early on. And your notes highlight CBGB, the punk place, as being really important for them.
Right. Seems like an odd fit initially, maybe.
Maybe from the outside, but it worked. Those gigs let them hammer out their sound, that blend of funk, hip-hop, hard rock, metal, even jazz. It became this really intricate thing, a cross-stitch of sonic textures is how your notes describe it, which I think is pretty apt.
And CBGB is where that pivotal moment happened, right, with Mick Jagger?
Yeah, huge moment. Jagger sees them, is blown away, apparently, and he offers to produce some demos for them. That's the break, really. That led directly to the Epic Records deal.
Wow. Talent meeting opportunity.
Exactly, and proof that those live shows were just undeniable.
Now let's talk about those expectations you mentioned, specifically the racial boundaries. An all-black hard rock band in the '80s.
Yeah.
That was unusual, wasn't it?
Hugely unusual. The industry just didn't really know what to do with them. Your notes mention record execs wanting to stick them in the R&B section, purely based on how they looked.
Just based on appearance.
Yeah. And there's that quote in your notes, an executive saying Corey Glover, the singer, sounded too much like Ben Vereen.
Ben Vereen, that's a completely different style.
Totally different. It just shows you the kind of narrow thinking they were up against, the boxes people wanted to put them in.
But they didn't just, accept that.
What?
Your notes make it clear they tackled this stuff head on in their music.
Oh, absolutely. The lyrics were powerful. Your notes list quite a few examples.
Funny vibe.
Tackling racism directly. Then Open Letter to a Landlord about gentrification. Someone like you dealing with police brutality. Type about stereotypes in the media. Even Pride taking on cultural appropriation.
And history lesson.
Yeah, putting it all in the context of the slave trade. They weren't shying away from the tough subjects. It was part of who they were.
And Vernon Reid didn't just stop at the music, did he? Your notes mention the Black Rock Coalition.
Right, the BRC. He co-founded that. Basically, out of frustration, black bands playing rock just weren't getting the audience or the opportunities in New York.
So the BRC aimed to change that.
Yeah, its manifesto, which your notes touch on, was all about embracing the whole spectrum of black music, pushing back against those creative straitjackets the industry imposed. And it really helped Living Colour build their initial audience, gave them a community.
But it's fascinating your notes point out that even black media outlets were sometimes hesitant. Corey Glover mentioned that.
He did. It's kind of ironic, isn't it? He observed that places like BE, The Source, they weren't really giving them much play, similar to what Lenny Kravitz experienced.
And the reason?
The classic line. They didn't fit the format.
The same thing they were probably hearing from rock radio stations.
Exactly. That's the double bind they were in, not quite fitting anywhere according to the gatekeepers.
Yet despite that lack of universal media embrace, they collaborated with some huge names.
Yeah.
Your notes list quite a few.
An incredible list, yeah. Little Richard, Mick Jagger, obviously. But also Queen Latifah, Dougie Fresh, Chuck D, Flava Flav, Ren DMC.
Wow, across the board.
Totally. It shows the respect they had among musicians. Even if some parts of the media weren't catching on, it cuts across genres.
Which really underlines that point in your notes about rock's connection to black music, something that often gets overlooked, doesn't it?
It does. This idea that rock is just white people stuff, as your notes phrase it. It ignores the history. It ignores the roots, the black artists who pioneered it, and the constant exchange between rock, R&B, hip-hop, living color embodied that connection.
Okay, let's shift focus slightly to the musical boundaries. We touched on Reed's influences, his parents encouraging diverse listening.
Right, that foundation was key. Santana, Hendrix, the funk, the jazz, it all went into his vision for the band.
And Corey Glover, too. Your notes say he absorbed a lot of different sounds growing up.
Yeah, it seems like that shared background, that openness to different styles, was crucial for the band's chemistry. They weren't afraid to experiment together.
And the result was this sound that's hard to pin down. Funk, hip-hop, hard rock, metal, jazz, all in there.
That cross-stitch idea again. They could lay down a heavy rock riff, but then you'd have this incredibly complex, funky bass line underneath, plus jazz elements, soul in the vocals, hip-hop rhythms, even in their heaviest songs. They just refused to stick to one lane.
And that adventurous spirit carried through to their albums and collaborations, didn't it? Your notes mentioned Time's Up.
Yeah, Time's Up, their second album, built on the debut, but went even further. Spoken word samples, features from Little Richard, hip-hop artists.
And later, Shade, deconstructing the blues.
Right, covering everyone from Robert Johnson to Biggie Smalls and Marvin Gaye, but through their own unique lens. It shows they never stopped exploring, never got complacent musically.
Which all speaks to their musicianship, described in your notes as a tour de force.
Definitely. These were and are incredibly skilled players. The arrangements were complex, but they made it sound powerful and coherent. Great synergy.
Okay, we absolutely have to talk about Cult of Personality. And the debut album, Vivid, that song was massive.
Just huge. And again, it perfectly captures their whole thing. Your notes say it came out of a rehearsal in Brooklyn. It's got that monster riff. Reed apparently thought it sounded like a mix of Led Zeppelin and Mahavishnu Orchestra. High praise.
And the lyrics weren't exactly typical rock fare. Stalin, Mussolini, JFK, Gandhi.
No. Talking about celebrity, politics, power, and using those speech samples, Malcolm X, JFK, FDR, it was dense, thought-provoking stuff.
Even the title came from a Khrushchev speech, your notes say.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't write that thinking this is going to be a huge MTV hit, would you?
Probably not.
But it was. Massive on MTV, hit the Billboard charts, won a Grammy, just totally unexpected, but it connected.
In Vivid, the album went double platinum off the back of that, reached number 6.
It did. And while Cult of Personality was the big single, the album itself had those other powerful tracks we talked about, Funny Vibe, Open Letter. So they were delivering the social commentary right alongside the rock anthems and even some love songs.
Plus, those tours mentioned in your notes opening for the Rolling Stones, Guns N' Roses, that must have put them in front of enormous crowds.
Oh, absolutely. Exposed a huge audience to their sound and their message, people who might never have encountered them otherwise.
So after that huge initial splash, they kept evolving. Time's Up was sonically adventurous, as your notes highlighted.
Yeah, maybe not quite the same massive commercial hit as Vivid, but critically acclaimed and really pushed their sound forward. And being on that first Lollapalooza tour, that was significant too. Put them right in the middle of that whole alternative scene that was blowing up.
But then there were bumps in the road, lineup changes, a breakup.
There were. Muzz Skillings, the original bassist, left after Time's Up, replaced by Doug Wimbish. And yeah, they did split up for a while in the mid-90s, around 95, your notes say.
But they came back.
They did, reunited in 2000. And they've continued putting out albums since then, still exploring.
And it's interesting how Cult of Personality just keeps popping up. Your notes mention video games and wrestling.
Yeah, it's got this weirdly long shelf life. Its use in video games introduced it to a whole new audience, and then CM Punk using it as his entrance music in wrestling was huge. Apparently, it was his Little League team song, too, which is a fun detail from your notes.
That's amazing.
It really speaks to the track's enduring power, doesn't it? It just connects with people across different contexts, different generations.
So wrapping things up, it really feels like Living Colour's biggest legacy, based on everything in your notes, is just that sheer defiance, defying expectations about race, about genre.
I think that's absolutely right. They refused to be boxed in. They carved out their own space by blending sounds people didn't think belonged together, and by speaking truth to power in their lyrics. And in doing that, they opened doors for so many other artists.
So, as we've really dug into here, using your fantastic notes, Living Colour wasn't just another band. They were a force. They challenged how people thought about rock music, about race in music, a really significant impact.
So thinking about all this, what really stands out to you most from their story, as laid out in the notes?
For me, maybe it's the combination. The fact that they can be so musically inventive, so virtuosic, and deliver such sharp, necessary social commentary at the same time. It wasn't one or the other. It was both, firing on all cylinders. It makes you think about what music can actually do, you know?
That's a great takeaway, the synthesis of it all.
Well, if you enjoyed this deep dive into Living Color, please do subscribe, like the video, leave a comment, let us know your thoughts.
Thank you for listening to VSOW.